to where I have this one and you have the bottom one. Yeah.
Okay, when we edit this, we should set it so that both of our voices are slightly panned to each side, so it's more conversational.
Yeah, I mean, we could set it to just straight stereo, but that kind of comes off weird as
it does
only.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's even an option. I guess like that's how mixing like music is supposed to go. Like that's the correct way.
I mean, typically you don't hard pan things. It's not super recommended, but like, you know, it's on the spectrum of how much % you can pan either way.
Right.
It's not like a car where it's like, oh, it can go to 120. Why can it go to 120? But it's just like as a percentage. I've used hard panning in music before when double tracking things. So I record a guitar completely twice, and then I put one recording on one ear and one recording on the other ear, so that the little differences between them make it more stereoscopic.
Right, I guess that makes sense. You can hear specifically the differences. Interesting. The more you learn.
Yeah.
I don't know dick all about audio engineering or audio editing at all. I'm just kind of going by the seat of my pants, but it's a learning process. I've already done it like bad one time, so can't be doing it worse, you know? It's only up from here. Just gotta keep doing it. I saw this ad while I was scrolling through Reddit today. I don't even think it was yesterday. But it was just started off of just like while scrolling through the first second, it's just this guy making this great deep dish pizza in the cast iron, like wrist deep, dropping the cheese in there. Looks amazing. I'm thinking it's going to be like some cast iron ad, some ad for a pizza place, whatever. I scroll through, and on that 1 second right, like stop, pick my thumb up, and I'm going to scroll again and just kind of focus on it. And right as I'm about to scroll, all I hear is type 2 diabetes. And I just scroll back up and I'm like, what in the fuck was that ad going to be? I'm glad I didn't stay for whatever, like, good-looking pizza, because holy shit, they whiplashed me. It's just like, ooh, pizza, diabetes? Okay. Right away.
Yeah, you like this pizza, don't you?
Bet you're
diabetic.
like
Diabetes?
I'll bet you like diabetes, too.
I remember how people would say diabetes, and there was that one dude, it said diabetes. That just sort of became a thing, and just everyone agreed that it kind of sounded funny. And
Wilford Brimley did the diabetes. He did I think he did like PSAs on it, which is why it became popular. Like he did TV reads where he was like, I'm here to talk with you about the dangers of diabetes.
That's good. That's a good way to say the word.
I know Family Guy made a bunch of jokes about him too, so it probably helped in the pop culture landscape as they got like more popular. Everybody was talking about Family Guy at one point on the playground.
Yeah, well, apparently Family Guy is losing its prime time position in the network. Yeah,
that's the change of the guard, as it were. Family Guy was at the top for so long, can't stay there.
Mm-hmm.
There's the other shows that Seth MacFarlane does, I'm sure, are also doing the same, like the American Dad and what was the other one?
There was the Cleveland Show, but they stopped doing the Cleveland Show.
Right. Wasn't there another one that he did, though? I keep forgetting.
What show has a nuclear family with 2 kids and 1 wacky animal companion, at least?
I was going to say, there was a lot of shows that just tried to copy that. Like, there's the Brickleberry one. I remember there was the Great North one. There was like trying to be like a Bob's Burgers copy. There's a bunch of ones. I'm just getting lost in the shuffle of which one Seth MacFarlane had potentially created.
There's that new comedy cartoon coming out on, like, the Daily Wire TV or something like that.
They have a streaming service?
I guess so. I mean, they got, like, one show, I guess.
Okay.
It's supposed to be, like, a takes-no-nonsense dad who's a teacher at a school who hates the libs. I don't know. I've seen the trailer for it. There's this one guy that has a top knot, and he's supposed to be like the hipster member of the staff, and just none of the guys like him. That's the show, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. I forget who supposedly made it. I think Ben Shapiro's in it.
Yeah, that sounds. What did you say? It was Daily Wire?
Yeah, no, I'm not kidding.
That sounds about right.
That's about the one thing that I think I got right about the show in full. The Daily Wire's making it, which is a bad sign.
Ugh, it sounds awful.
Yeah.
It sounds like of all the things coming out, like, you know, the Fallout show was like a good, like, oh, I'm hyped for that. Like, that's, nah. I have no interest in seeing any part of that.
Nope.
They're making a Velma season 2 as well, the Mindy Kaling show.
Mm-hmm. I heard it was really bad. I mean, I also just I heard the sort of, like, comparison where, like, certain media properties nowadays are sort of like myths and legends of the past, you know, like especially superheroes.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh, superheroes are kind of like the myths and legends of the past, and I don't agree with that because they're owned.
Yeah, they're properties. People are going to keep trying to make money off them.
Yeah, so it's not the same as passing the story down over generations of like certain specific heroics. It's continuing to be like a profit thing, and I don't really like reboots in that sense, especially reboots that change significant things more than just like trying to do the same thing again, because it kind of could just be its own property.
Yeah, I was gonna say, really nothing of that show that I watched really felt like a Scooby-Doo show. It just kind of had the Scooby-Doo cast, sort of, and they're just like making fun of the Scooby-Doo cast while they were doing it, so it's just kind of like, that definitely wasn't for Scooby-Doo fans, that show, so I don't know what they were trying to make.
I mean, I respect, whatever artist making an alternate universe of, some property that they like, make your thing, put it on Tumblr, share it on Twitter, interact with other people. It looks like a great time. I don't know, man. Like, when it's a product like that, and it's trying to, like, take something, like, an existing intellectual property and do some wacky thing with it, I just kind of don't like it.
Yeah.
I was upset when I heard that there was going to be a Toy Story 4, which patently does not affect me.
Right.
That doesn't affect my life at all.
You're right. Yeah, no, it's just Toy Story 3 even was just like kind of, not really, I don't want to say gratuitous, but like it was one of the things you felt like, okay, they kind of need to make that movie, put a bow on it, finish it up, like we're done now. Like,
I agree. I think I like that they put a bow on it.
Right, the toys get to the new girl, and now they're gonna go on to, they're gonna keep getting played with, and they had the whole thing of like what happens when kids don't play with toys, right? So it's like, oh, cool, you explore the universe of like kids and growing up and what happens to toys and all that. So it's kind of nice. I like that, going into this little bit of the lore, but the story of just now we're moving on and we're done should have stayed that.
Yeah. I did see one. As much as I was upset by the fact that there's a Toy Story 4, I was actually quite interested in the trailer, because some of the characters, there's like a character like Sporky or Forky or something, which is
he's just a fork.
He's just a plastic fork with googly eyes or whatever on him and like pipe cleaner arms.
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting statement to make in the series, Like, if any of these toys, like, can just be put together by whatever and then given life.
Yeah.
That's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's like it's a lot like a lot of the questions raised with the Cars universe.
Yeah.
Like when cars go into one another, like to carry each other. Like, what is that all about? They just like holding you in their body, like Kirby style, or I don't know. It's weird.
Well, I'd still imagine that like the box that you attach to a semi truck is a separate thing. And probably not conscience.
Yeah, but they have like taxis in that universe too. Like, what are those?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. What do those do? Like, it's just, what's the point?
I think we need to start. Anytime we run into one of these consistencies in a TV show or a movie, we just start going like the old like internet conspiracy theory about a TV show route, where it's just like, oh, well, every character represents one of the circles of hell. They're all dead.
Lightning McQueen is the fourth circle of hell.
Ash Ketchum is in a coma.
That's a classic one. He just sees the Ho-Oh and wishes that he's never gonna go out, like gonna live his Pokemon journey out, and that's after that moment he dies or whatever.
Yeah,
goes into the coma.
It was on the tip of my tongue. Oh, they actually did that, something like that in Fairly Odd Parents.
Where, like, what, Timmy was in a coma? Oh, yeah, they did the whole thing.
So apparently they revealed that Timmy wished that nobody would continue aging so he could have his fairy godparents forever, and also that Cosmo would forget that.
Right, and forget that he ever
wish.
did that. I remember that whole thing. He wished that nobody would ever age, and he's like, yeah, that was a big mic drop moment of like, oh man, Timmy sucks.
Yeah.
He's an evil guy. Yeah, I watched a whole video essay about how much Butch Hartman sucks and about how he ruined Family Guy, basically, or not Family Guy, Fairly Odd Parents.
What wicked tendrils does he have in Family Guy? What's he doing over there?
Now he's off doing some like fundamentalist Christian cartoon stuff now, which power to him, I guess. That's what he wants to do, and he's doing it with the best intentions you could. Like no scandals have really come out since he started doing that, but yeah. Just strange. He kept trying to push that into every cartoon sense.
Yeah. From the great mind that brought us Doug Dimmadome, the owner of the Dimsdale See, I can't even say it. It's a tongue twister.
See, that's the other thing, too, is nothing of the actual shows he actually made. That was part of why he was such a sham. It was all like this other artist's work that drew all the characters and made all the things, and he was just like the guy that made the show, so he was like, oh, your work is mine kind of deal. That's how he always took it.
Yeah, maybe being a little bit over, claiming too much of your team's work for yourself.
Yeah. I went to the grocery store, and I normally get like little protein bar snacks. Which I think like those Signature Select brand ones are pretty good. And they have like 3 different flavors of like salted caramel, salted almond, and one other one I think was like a chocolate one that I usually don't fuck with. And I couldn't remember which of the other 2 that I had gotten the last time, but I was like, oh man, the last one was really good. I want to get the same one. I don't remember which one it was. I just went with my gut, and it turns out it was the same one. And I just remember being like, well, I knew. In my heart of hearts, I guess I knew.
I have the opposite story, where I found these granola bar type things. They're called Lara Bar. And they're mainly made out of dates.
Okay. Date protein.
So I eat one. It's a lemon flavored one. And I was like, I don't really like this too much. And it's quite lemony.
Right.
So then I saw another one, and it was like a blueberry version of the date bar. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this one's better. It wasn't. Didn't like it. So, boo.
That date bar sucks. Maybe just dates are not your snack.
I guess I like regular dates, but like they are very sweet, and I feel like when you pack a bunch of them into a bar, it's very saccharine.
Sure.
Sorry, Lara Bar.
What does saccharine mean?
Just sort of very sweet. At least that's how I use it.
Yeah.
Like saccharinely sweet. I think it has something to do with a Greek god.
Say never heard it used before. It's quite a fancy word.
I like using fancy words.
Quite shallow and pedantic of you.
I remember I was like writing music, a couple of years ago and showing people the lyrics, and they're like, "Oh wow, you used the word enamored." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, some of these in delusion," and it's like these are pretty big words. I'm like, I guess, yeah, maybe I don't listen to them or hear them in music that often. I was just a little surprised that they were noteworthy in the first place.
What was the word? I forget. It was like some professor or something she said like, oh, this is a way to prove that papers are AI generated is they use this word, and I forget what it was. It was like delve, I think.
I think it is delve. Yeah.
And it's just like, really, delve? Is that a step too far for you? So you can't delve into something?
Well, no, it's the fact that delve shows up a disproportionate amount in the training data.
Ah, sure.
And so, like, you're likely to see it at a decently high frequency when paper's AI generated because it's just a prediction model.
Yeah, well, fuck you. Every college student just going to start using Delve now, and then what are you going to do about it? Shut up, AI. Shut up, teacher who thinks they know things.
I mean, they've been right about some of these things.
No, I'm sure, yeah. I'm sure, like, 90% of them, students aren't just going to, like, start using it in retaliation, and it's probably a very simple way to catch AI people. Because if you're going to use an AI generate thing to write your paper, you're probably not going to be too, cautious about like, oh, let me proofread it or whatnot. You're probably just going to be stupid enough to send it on in as soon as they write it.
I really think that using AI to write papers for you in college is a waste of money.
Yeah, especially if you're paying for it. Yeah, it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
Most definitely. What do you think about the AI, using AI to make art?
I think that it is not good.
I think that a lot of the conversation of AI art is not art is extremely similar to a lot of the rhetoric of digital art is not art that was present back in like the 90s.
Well, I don't really see a lot of those arguments. I also don't really see a lot of arguments that AI art isn't art, as much as the arguments of it's using stolen data, technically, to produce that art.
Okay, it's an interesting take to it. I've seen a lot of takes online of just, it is not art because you're not, like, creating anything. You're using something to create it.
Well, there's also the argument that a person using AI isn't an artist.
Right, which that was the argument I was really talking about.
Yeah, but that's, I mean, I agree with that. Like, just typing something in, you don't really have a lot of control over what you're doing, and you don't get to make the decisions that an artist is making. Even if you can, write more and more and more into that prompt, there's all these different layers of, like, stuff that you don't have control of. It's a toy, fundamentally.
Right. But I was in the same way of you don't really have control over, things in, say, like a video game space. That still doesn't prevent you from being able to express yourself in that space. Not to say, like, doing things in a video game would be art, but those artistic representations sometimes do have restrictions upon them in order to be able to come through.
Well, yeah, but I think restrictions creates a lot of, or breeds creativity. That's the saying.
Right, and I think a lot of, with just branching off of that, you get a lot of weirdly creative things from AI art that people wouldn't expect. Like, you wouldn't normally draw, just because, like you're saying, they take a lot of those liberties that you don't really get to as an artist, and they make a lot of strange things. Like, there's people that use AI art to make some really wacky, I've seen especially a lot of political figures, because there's a lot of just images of them, so I'm sure the data of them is pretty rich. Like, a lot of just different images like that are pretty wacky, and that artists wouldn't even think to draw, or probably wouldn't be able to, someone who's an AI artist.
And I still don't like it. I don't have a lot of respect for AI art. It's just not an actual type of expression in my eyes, because you aren't creating the thing. Fundamentally, you aren't.
I'd argue that you are, because if you sit down in front of an AI prompt and do nothing, then nothing happens. You don't create anything. So you have to type in something in order to get some sort of response, and then you can tweak it and whatever. It's in the same way that you have to dip a paint into paintbrush in order to be able to put it onto the canvas to get some sort of analog response of paint being there. I see it. I'm not an artist in any sense of the way. I don't draw, I don't paint, I don't make AI art, but I just see it from an outsider's perspective, of the same way that people used computers to then make art. People would complain like, well, you're not actually drawing, so therefore it's not art. The computer's doing everything for you. You're not an artist. The computer's an artist type deal. I feel it's the same argument of like, well, you're not actually doing anything. The AI is making the art for you. It's like, well, yes, but if I just type gobbledygook into an AI, it's not going to make anything. You have to know how to use the prompts and how to guide it correctly. And like you're saying, you're not going to be able to guide it in the exact way you want, but further and further.
I guess here's another part of the approach is when you have someone like a character artist working on a show, you're going to see like a draft of the character, and you're going to think, I like X thing, I like Y thing, I don't like this thing, so please change those three things.
Right.
An AI cannot do that.
I'd argue if it was already part of the prompt, you probably could. Like, if you put into the prompt to make sure they have pointy ears, and then you get the note back, hey, make sure they don't have pointy ears, you could probably just take that out of the prompt or change it.
Well, then you're going to get an entirely different product, and that different product will have non-pointy ears. But anything that happened to come out of, this AI filling in the gaps for you is unrepeatable.
I was going to say, so then that brings the more thing of AI being used as a tool rather than just being used as the whole, like, kit and caboodle. The same way that computer art is not able to just do it for you. Like, sure, if you are a very talented artist who can 3D, or not even 3D, just 2D draw very well, and you make an AI image and you say, okay, this is kind of what I want my character to, look like. And you have this, instead of starting with a blank slate, you start with a somewhat finished thing. And you could just change certain things, like maybe if you're making the character for yourself, let's say instead of just a character studio artist, although it could work the same way, I guess, you get the notes back, you're actually able to change the ears yourself, like go into a program and edit it, digitally draw it. Well, and you get to start a step ahead of just having to draw it from scratch.
I think it's an important part of the process. I think that's where...
That's a fair argument.
You find what you're trying to make, in a sense.
True.
Is through that drafting process.
But I could make the argument that drafting with AI could be the same part of the process. Maybe you just run the prompt like 6 different times, like, I don't like that orc, I don't like this orc, make his skin a little bit greener, I don't like that orc, that orc looks okay, so let me save this one, maybe I'll keep him, run 5 more, didn't get one that I liked better, so go back to this orc, just start drawing on him.
Yeah, but if you have the ability to make the changes in the first place, those are typically people that are going to prefer to do it themselves.
Sure, but I'm saying...
the entire way. So they're not, like, actual artists aren't really interested in using them in the first place, which makes the clientele people who are getting into it because it's something that doesn't require effort for them. Because the people that did put in the effort don't see it as a useful tool.
Right, and this is where I kind of get into the problem with the term actual artist. Because, yes, a lot of the people that have put in the work would see a problem with it and that, but... If you have an entire generation of artists that use this as a tool and shortcut now, I mean, those other artists are just going to be left in the dust. If everybody else just agrees that, yeah, this is the way to start from step 5 instead of everybody else starting from scratch. Like, you can get a character drawn from scratch the old school way. It's going to take longer. It's going to be more personally designed, but you can get an AI and then someone who also knows how to draw on top of that to just get it done quick. And it's going to be something that is unique and not just AI-generated slop. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot now is people just pumping and dumping that AI generated stuff, but eventually it's going to balance out to where people can use that AI and actually utilize it as a tool to further themselves rather than just rely on it to make quick cash.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting to is that I don't see a good position for AI art to actually benefit an artist.
Not a current artist, but I think it can definitely benefit someone looking to become an artist. Because now there is something to be said about the 10,000 hours required of drawing like 10,000 terrible orcs before you get to the orc that you really like. But maybe there is a way to learn art skills, not from that way. That's what I was trying to say of like these people who have put in the 10,000 hours, of course, will scoff at it because they've done it this way. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, this is the way art should be done. Again, not an artist, don't really know. But if there's a whole new generation of artists that learn to draw from this and are able to just make it work, I mean, who's to say that they're not artists? Who's to say that their work isn't valid just because they use this tool as opposed to the pen and paper?
Well, they don't. The fact of the matter is that a lot of what they believe they are creating is not as much something that they are creating as is an echo of what other people created.
Sure, an aggregate of
it
data.
Is, but it's not just taking inspiration from something else like a person does. It is quite literally an aggregate of other images put together.
And that's the part I haven't seen argued a whole lot, which is actually smart and makes a lot of sense. That is literally just taking data that is not only probably just copyright, but also just like legitimate other artworks or other, pieces and using it to make it. And there is some argument, I suppose, to be had about free use in that regard, because if you're taking it and then altering it in some way and then using it again, is that really the same? Yeah. Who knows?
I mean, you can't really do that. Like in music, if you have samples in your song, you need to get those samples cleared with the owner of that sample. And that's not, I also disagree with the idea that you couldn't like make your own recording of that and then use that in your song. That's a legal point where I just don't think that should be an issue. I don't even know if that is an issue really. But you end up owning like these recordings and these images and stuff like that are used to train other things, and that's a violation of the like your rights to your piece of work and deciding on where and how it's used.
Right.
It's used in a like literal algorithm. Like, that's evidence of it. That is the imprint of it in that algorithm.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Some interesting things I've seen. I'm much more accepting of something where someone, like, trains an AI. Like, so Shutterstock, I remember reading a while back, was working on producing some type of AI because they are literally an image repository.
Right.
Of images that they own, like,
so they can probably,
quite a few of the rights to.
Exactly. So they could probably just self-generate, especially stock photos of nobody.
Yeah, I mean, if you own all of those images and you have the rights to all of those images, I don't see an issue with it.
Yeah.
That's, fine. And AI-generated music just sucks.
Yeah,
it's literally just bad.
It's bad. It can be used for like good comedy aspects, like that 103 Fever video. But yeah, it's really just for no other point than just to be like a joke and how bad it is. It's like,
I think that's honestly probably the strongest place for AI right now is making something shitty and low effort.
Yeah, I mean it's a place nonetheless.
It is, yeah. I've seen plenty of, voice AIs, which a lot of voice actors don't like, which I think is reasonable. But then, people use that to make some shitty low effort video of like Drake saying, "Turn up my boing." I'm about to like diss Drake or diss Kendrick or something like that.
Turn up my boing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because he has in the thing, people were just adding a little like boing sound effect. This is like an older Drake meme where everyone was just, here's Drake when he sees a pie in a windowsill, and the smell reaches his nose, and it's like someone pretending to like be carried like that, or like someone running away, and then it does like a whoop, 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 like.
Right, the whistle sound effect, whatever it is.
Yeah, for someone whistle. Like, running in place for a second and then dashing off.
Why are those memes about Drake?
No clue. It's just kind of like general, like making fun of him.
Fair.
But yeah, AI music, it just doesn't hit for me. I don't think it ever will. I mean, we also talked about this in, I think the previous episode.
AI music?
Recording too. Well, no. What was it? A big part of what makes art and stuff like that good is the novelty of it. A part of your interest is the novelty of it.
Right.
And if you are training AIs off of like previously created stuff, it's not going to be very novel. You're just going to be remixing things, which a human would still do better.
True that. Yeah, I think definitely as, like, I'll say it for a third final time, as not an artist in any respect whatsoever, I think it can be a strangely useful tool and has a place, but I don't think people using it should be defiled as non-artists and people who are just trying to, cheat the system, I guess you could say. I feel like it's a little unfair to them. The people who pump and dump things and just try to make like crazy fake AI videos for like political reasons, sure. But people who are using it for, they're making a Dungeons and Dragons campaign and they want to make some characters, but they don't have the time to sit and draw and become an artist for 2 years just to make a campaign. I feel like that person shouldn't be slammed for just having quote unquote OC art of their characters.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not gonna be that great of art.
No, but it doesn't, for the example especially that I'm providing, it doesn't really need to be. It's just someone who needs it for a little pet project. And I feel like it's
well, I mean, you aren't selling anything.
Right.
You aren't trying to sell anything.
That's what I'm trying to say. For personal things, especially small projects and things that aren't going to be like huge scale money-wise, and even the low-effort comedy bit we were talking about, it has a place and it is indeed art, I feel. It's my final opinion on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think everything's art, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, I feel that too.
I think that making stuff using AI is circumventing a big part of why we make art and the joy that we get out of art. And the products ultimately aren't as good.
I feel like if you try to use AI art to imitate other forms of art, like, and you try to make those types of products, then yeah, I'd agree. But that's why I'm trying to say it has its own unique kind of niche of either being that low effort thing or just being like, you know, like I said, quick pet projects.
Mm-hmm. And I personally haven't really used any AI tools. I used DALL-E 1 for image generation, and I said, haha, that's funny. And then I haven't really used any of this stuff again. I really, really don't like the introduction of AI into search engines, because that's just another layer of stuff getting in the way of me trying to find actual information.
Yeah. Yeah, you were talking about the Google Web thing last time, right?
Mm-hmm. There's also, I tried giving it a shot once, and I was like, hey, can you make me some Python code that, you know, does these couple of things? And it said, that is not possible in Python. And I said, yes, it is. And then it said, oh, you're right, and then it did it. And I was pissed off by it.
What? Weird that it would just be straight up wrong like that.
No, it's not weird that it would be straight up wrong.
Oh.
Like, these are wrong all the time because it's unvetted information being fed into it.
Yeah, I guess that if it's just aggregate, yeah, it's not. It's really...
just skimming Stack Overflow and all of that, you know? And whatever other forums where people are asking these questions. You know, whatever's on the internet, and then just piecing it together.
Right, just whatever information it can scrape up.
Saw a thing earlier today that's like, how long do you boil taro? And it said anything from 15 to 20 minutes to 1.5 hours. So thank you, Twitter, for showing me that.
Thank you.
You just kind of, you know, boil it. However, it doesn't matter. None of this matters.
Right. Just do it.
Yeah. Thanks, AI. Thanks for putting that above a website that might actually have been written by a person who has experience having done these things.
Right. Going back to music, the reason I love the Super Nintendo so much is because that was one of the first times in video games that I actually recognized like music starting to evolve. Because a lot of the times, even for the beginning Super Nintendo games and most regular Nintendo games, it was just like one tone. You'd have like 3 bits were dedicated to music.
Yeah, it was MIDI. So
I don't know what that means.
MIDI is just you have certain notes coded to play in a sequence.
Oh.
And then you run that through a module for like a instrument.
Right.
And then it plays those notes.
Guess that makes sense. So a lot of the, early Nintendo games just like, I guess, stuck to the one instrument because they all just had very basic, 3-tone soundtracks that would loop and often very repetitive. But I remember Super Nintendo, there's a lot of games that even still to this day I listen to the soundtrack to because they were some of the first times of people actually putting like a drum beat in the background and having a synth, beat and electric guitars come in after it. Like it was a whole like orchestra, a whole musical score that was going along with games. Super cool.
They started out with like just kind of basic waveform generators. I remember the Game Boy had like 5 waveform generators, I believe, like one for percussion, and then a couple of them is like there's a square wave, a saw wave, triangle wave, sine wave, something like that. And then you just put the notes into the different registers, and then they'll play it, and you have like 4 different sounds.
Yeah.
And then like make stuff out of percussion. I don't exactly remember how they do that. But they weren't using audio files. It was you were instructing a computer to make a sound real.
Right. It was literally like you were composing like with a computer. It was wild.
Yeah.
And seeing those guys, like, it makes sense why the genre like chiptune is still around, and why a lot of those guys from back in those days who made the great songs are still like heralded as, you guys were way ahead of your time. How'd you make this like orchestral soundtrack with just basically a MIDI computer, MIDI files?
Well, that's like actual creativity breeding, limitation breeding creativity.
Yeah.
You had to figure out an interesting way to achieve something, and it took some workarounds, and there is evidence of the tools that you had to work with in your work, and that will last forever.
Yeah.
So, it's not really something that you can emulate.
I can emulate it on my computer right now.
Set you up for that one.
Yeah, no, it was just a super cool thing. I remember even games that I didn't want to play, I would just boot up just to listen to their like what soundtracks they had and what their intro songs were. 'Cause they were often just like grandiose and very like big crescendos coming in. Super fun.
Pikmin does a really good, interesting variety of stuff with MIDI music.
Isn't it like a GameCube game? They still use
Yeah.
MIDI files on the GameCube?
It's an option. Sometimes you'd use, recordings and stuff like that. But if you're using all digital instruments, it's not that big of a deal that maybe you're instead doing MIDI. But you can do a lot with branching contextual music in MIDI that's a lot more difficult to do with an actual recording. Because with MIDI, you can also put filters over the individual tracks, and those filters go further than what we can do with recording, because this is to the level of like how hard does it sound like you're hitting this drum, like how much. It's called velocity. So every single note has a velocity for how much. I mean, typically, like for an actual drum, that's an easy way to think about it is the speed, but like
Right.
a clarinet or something, it's like how much air are you putting into it,
Right.
velocity.
That's kind of cool. You can just like control that even. So it's like it's going on beyond a level of composing. You're literally like trying to put yourself in the shoes of every like instrument, basically. That's
Well,
wild.
that's a big thing that makes it so like interesting as digital art. If we're being real, it's digital art. Is that there are like there's a recognition of like what controls you want to be able to achieve certain things, certain sounds, and like what we're used to as humans to expect out of these different instruments. And how they sound when you're hitting it lightly versus very hard. Those are different, and people use that as a part of the expression.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and being able to have that, not only being able to see it in your head, but being able to make it come to life on like just a computer screen of code. That's crazy talent.
You can make like the notes shorter or longer. So like sometimes it's like these long, like held out like string bows, and then when a specific thing happens in like a cave or whatever, like you go near an enemy, the violins start
To pick up and crescendo.
It was like pizzicato or something, and like the enemy's asleep and you're sneaking around, and so it's just like little like plucks or something
but
like
it's
that.
like the
and
same
then the enemy
instrument.
wakes up, and then it starts like bowing really loud.
Right. Transitions like that by keeping the same instrument going throughout the. That's cool.
There's a lot you can do with MIDI, and if you have like a lot of electronic instruments are typically used as like MIDI controllers. So you have your computer instruments, your computer synthesizers, software synthesizers as opposed to hardware synthesizers, and you just send MIDI information to that, and then you can produce all the sounds that you need to. You can send a MIDI file to a hardware synthesizer, and then you can record the output of that to go back into the computer as an audio recording if you wanted that, which working with audio files is different than working with MIDI, and there's like some different things you can do with that and the chopping or whatever you want to do.
Wow.
There's a lot of different layers of expression built into the way that you interact with this program and
Yeah,
the
I had
tools
no
that it
idea.
allows you to use.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love messing around with that stuff, and like one of my earlier recordings that I did back in maybe even late middle school or something, I thought of something I wanted to play on guitar, and it was not very easy to play, maybe even impossible. It's been a long time and I forgot what it was.
Sure.
So I just recorded every single string individually, just doing the notes that are going to be on that string. And so I did that 6 times, and I put them all together, and it was very aggressive because I was hitting every single string with like
Right.
full gusto, and real strings don't sound like that when you strum the entire thing.
Right.
But it was an interesting thing to notice that why this isn't a substitute for doing it normally, because you're picking up things on the different things that you do. But it also could be an interesting way, like if you really wanted that specific sound that I made, then you could record each individual string I don't recommend it. It's not the best. But
It's a way to make
available.
music. That's really interesting. I didn't know that about MIDI files.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I recommend if you want to get into music without really investing like resources, or like, get your toes wet before you decide if you want to invest resources. MIDI's pretty good, especially if you like know how to read music or have an idea of like what scales are and stuff like that.
Right.
But MIDI allows you to noodle around with the notes until something sounds good, which is nice to have access to.
That was really interesting about Super Nintendo games. Like I said, I've been super interested in the music for my whole life. I never knew like that aspect about it, though. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, you can find just this type of software is probably free. Chiptune generators. And those are, pretty decent simulations, on the limitations of how many channels you have access to and like, setting up what type of waveforms each one's going to have, because you're going to have that for the entirety of the song for the most part.
Right.
Unless you... I guess I don't know what exactly all goes into it, but I have a friend that was making stuff with an actual chiptune editor. They also had, on the Super Nintendo, Mario Paint.
Yeah, I remember that. That was you could make, it was a popular thing on YouTube for a while to make songs in Mario Paint.
I mean, I still watch those. I like them. I played Mario Paint when I was a kid, and that is actually literally just a MIDI digital audio workstation.
Yeah.
It's very, like, low. It's not very feature rich, but it has
it does what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it fits the minimum requirement for digital audio workstation. I think it's pretty cool.
I was gonna say it was one of those things. It was definitely ahead of its time. People look back on it like, wow, that was something that like inspired me to want to be an artist. Being able to play around like that, because it was one of the first because I'm sure there were drawing tools on the computer and whatnot, but the Super Nintendo was like just that window to kids. Being able to access that was unheard of back then. Super cool. I wish I had Mario Paint. I got my fight sticks so I can play Super Street Fighter 2 like a motherfucker.
Hell yeah. Even though you don't have Mario Paint, you could find the the online version of it, which is pretty close to the original, but they added in a couple of things for like quality of life, Oh,
nice, like in Flash or in browser rather, because Flash.
I don't think it's a browser. I think you got to download the program, but there's like sharps and flats, which I don't think were available in the original. You can make songs much longer because you're not relying on Super Nintendo amounts of memory.
Right.
You can set the tempo to be much higher. You can probably subdivide more because there's only 4 beats in a 4/4 bar. I don't know how much you could subdivide in the original. And you could always make, or in the internet one, you can change octaves, I believe. Which typically you need to use a different instrument to access a different octave. Because they only had so much space, but... Yeah. I've seen Through the Fire and the Flames.
Yeah, that's a classic one.
Yep. They set the
little cat meows and everything in it.
They set the speed to, as high as it possibly can go, and then you just see the line, flashing across the screen every single, frame. It's good.
Oh, God. Yeah, is there other programs that will just besides MIDI, where you can just upload sheet music and it'll make a cover version of that song?
Well, I mean, MIDI isn't a program; it's a standard.
Right, but I mean, other than just converting it to a MIDI file and chip tuning it, basically.
I mean, you could probably get something that reads actual sheet music, but I used to convert sheet music into MIDI by hand. It's not really that hard. But there are programs out there that are, they run off MIDI, but instead of interacting with it the piano roll, you're actually interacting with a sheet. You have a bar for the music,
right?
And you write it in as notes and pitches with their respective lengths and stuff like that.
It'd be way over my head. I don't know how to read music, but it's interesting. You can just write music like that, directly onto the digital page.
Yeah, and then the thing would interpret that. The program I used to use was MuseScore. I tried making a marching band version of a couple of songs that I really liked. One of them being Houdini by Foster the People, because I thought the beginning would sound really good with a drum line, because it's just like a boom, boom, ka, boom, boom, ka, boom, ka, boom, boom, ka, boom, ka.
And there's the drum line behind that, just...
No, just add the drum line.
Oh, add that into it. I never heard
have the drum line play that beat that is in the beginning of the song, and then just have like a bunch of horns come in and play like, you know, the notes. It's I worked on it. I thought it was cool, but I never really ended up finishing any of that stuff. Which is also why a big part of the advice that I give to people that want to create is to finish pieces of work.
Right.
Just literally just finish the thing. Decide that it's finished, or decide what you need to do to get it finished. Finish it, because that's, you know, the only way that you really get the full experience of creating something. Because if you don't decide that something is finished, then, you know, it's not really like something that ended. Yeah,
you can try to make something perfect forever, but yeah, if it's you never finish it, then did you ever really do it?
Exactly. So
I wholeheartedly agree with that, and that's why, like I was saying before, I wanted to hold off on making the King Crab essay, because I knew there was going to be a couple where I was like, I need to get this done, and I'm going to be able to learn from it, and probably make some mistakes, because I'm not going to be able to knock this out of the park right away. And so far, so good. I've made a couple different essays. I'm still writing some more, trying to find out the good flow to it. Feeling good.
Another thing that this makes me think of is when it comes to like mixing and stuff like that. It's a really good practice to take your mix and listen to it on different sets of speakers. Because when you're putting together a song or, you know, a podcast or whatever, you don't know what the viewer or listener is going to be using to listen to it.
Right.
And every different set of speakers, or at least especially so, different speakers for like different purposes and different devices, have different qualities in what frequencies it's better at producing, what frequencies it has trouble producing at, like, you know, a good level.
Right.
And it's basically like another sort of like filter in itself of that function of what frequencies are good and bad, you know.
Right.
It's another layer of mixing. So you need to account for all the different contexts that is going to be played and try to come to a compromise in the sound so that it sounds good on all of them. And you can, you know, make a specific part of it that you want to properly shine.
Right. That reminds me of a story that's real popular in like the history of Rooster Teeth, because they had just shut down, so I've been just watching a lot of content about them. But when they made their first DVDs for their Red versus Blue series, they made the DVDs themselves, like basically coded them from scratch, and they had this whole thing where they wanted to make a lot of different menu features and special things that would happen in the menu and whatnot, and they just recounted of like DVD player technology of the time was just so like ridiculous and like non-standard that they just had to go out and test like their one DVD on 60 different DVD players just to make sure like the menu features were able to work on that, because every single DVD player read a DVD differently.
Well, that's the point. That's the purpose of standards, baby. That's why we have them, so that, you know, if you make some type of tool, it can function with, you know, the entire base of people that you want to sell to.
It's just funny to me to think,
and get away from proprietary stuff.
Right. Just funny to think like, oh, the Panasonic DLX-003 model. It just makes the menu go sideways when you turn it on. It's for the 004, where does it fine? Why? I don't know. We should write in some code for the 003.
There's some interesting things you can do with that too, with like how different programs and different devices are able to interpret code. There was this one bug that was going around, I think, a computer bug. I think it was going around somewhere in the Middle East. And basically it's a small program that duplicates itself, you know, whenever it can to another machine.
Right.
And if it goes on a machine that controls like a nuclear power plant or something like that.
Oh, jeez.
It like shuts it off or something. Maybe probably something more devious.
Oh my god.
So I'm thinking, you know, you get your red and blue DVDs and then you just put one little thing on it where it's like, by the way, if this specific model of Panasonic DVD player reads it, blow it up.
Activate self-destruct.
Yeah, just start spinning that disc like crazy and, start overheating it.
That's a wild that's a real virus that went around? Just like people found out as soon as it went into nuclear power plants, it would fuck them up?
I don't know all the details, but I mean, a virus replicating itself onto multiple devices makes complete sense to me, and a virus that looks out for very specific, like, registers or ports or types of programs on a computer, because I'm pretty sure it actually infects, like it actually operates on, like, controller, software or something like that. So, like, something that isn't actually... I mean, it's a computer, but not like a personal computer like we understand.
Right. Doesn't have the same kind of UI of being able to access it the same way.
Yeah. It has like its own like special screen with like limited stuff, like a point of service terminal.
I was going to say, it's usually got proprietary service terminals where you can actually plug a real computer in and run diagnostics and whatnot.
Yeah. But then, it just sort of like runs this different stuff because that's what the virus does.
That's pretty crazy. That's old school. I haven't really thought about computer viruses in a long time.
Yeah, well, I mean, even nowadays, like, some of the best ways to like, hack someone is completely off the computer. Like, it's not, like, a big, like, computationally intensive thing. It's, like, sending a phishing email to the right person. Like, that's a skill that you're looking out for when trying to hire a bank account scammer. Is how they're going to get someone duped out of their password as opposed to making a code
to crack it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense that all those different schemes of like they call the old people and just try to be really nice to them to send them cash money.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Grandma traps on Facebook. Mm-hmm. Like when they have those things where it's like, what's the way that you're gonna die? And it's like, in 40 years you'll get hit by a bus. Or something like that, maybe that's a bad example.
And that draws them right in. As soon as they realize they're going to get hit by the bus, they start listening.
Maybe that's a bad example. More so like the little things that you click on Facebook and you have to put in a small amount of information and then it posts something directly to your timeline.
Oh, yeah, sure. I assume that's a big thing. I haven't been on Facebook in a long time, but sounds correct.
Well, those typically, like, help people identify marks. Someone who's willing to put in personal information on a random website that they just clicked on.
Right.
And some of them, themselves just sort of convince people to, like, put in the street you grew up on and your first pet's name, and then we'll tell you what your favorite, what gemstone represents you.
Right. Some classic shit
like
security questions.
Yeah, but that's like, someone's going to fall for it. Like, your information is going to be out there if you do, and someone else can, at whatever point in time, pick that up. And, if you do this over so many different people, you're going to find enough hits.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's probably the origin of, get your porn star name of the street you lived on, and like your first pet's name or whatever.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like they were doing that in the playground, but it was people just like looking like, all right, I'm gonna write that down. So fucking try to get into your accounts. That's funny. It's funny to think about 10-year-olds trying to hack into each other's Club Penguins that way.
Exactly. I miss Club Penguin. I mean,
Same.
not that I would really be playing it now, but I have an old ass account.
I was playing Club Penguin Rewritten all day when it was out. Good times. Rest in peace.
But I didn't have my account on Club Penguin Rewritten.
Yeah, no, I had to start a new one too. They got rid of my original CP account.
I remember looking at how old my Club Penguin account was when it officially became more than half my life that account has been active.
Jesus.
I made it like 5 or 4 or something like that. Like, I don't know, as soon as I could play a computer game, I was playing Club Penguin.
Yeah.
And then I, eventually stopped, but I kept the account. And I liked looking at it, and it's like, wow, this is 2,000 days old. Like,
they were probably looking at you at the higher-ups being like, yeah, look at this veteran member we got. They're never leaving. Our game's so good.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't there for them tipping the iceberg.
I didn't get to see that either. I just saw the videos afterwards. Did all the spy mission stuff, though. That was fun.
You know about getting banned from Club Penguin
Speedruns, yeah. Yeah.
I love those.
You showed me those.
I love how they developed.
Just creating an account, checking emails so fast, and just typing fuck into the chat as quick as you can. Fuck, banned, orange screen.
You use like the clipboard and like a
copy
temporary
paste.
email generator. So you like have an email account that only lasts for 5 minutes because you're going to do runs multiple times over.
Right.
Trying to get the time. And you like all have it on the clipboard and just copy and paste into the exact spots you need to as quickly as possible.
So
Paste
funny.
fucking enter banned.
Banned, orange screen, run over.
I wish I had the opportunity to participate in that.
That's so funny.
By the time I heard about it, I was too busy. And now by the time that I have the drive to do it, it's gone.
It's gone. No one ever thought what happened with Club Penguin was gone. We thought it would be here forever.
RuneScape's still kicking.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think like 07scape still has like players on it pretty regularly.
Yeah, well, people liked it the most. The thing is, they made an alternate timeline pretty much with that because they made 07scape, which its original pitch was it is on the 2007 a specific patch in that year that they reverted the time to.
Right.
But they started making updates on top of that, and those are not updates that are also made to the main game.
I guess that makes sense if they're trying to keep it as like two separate properties. Like they're keeping 07scape and they're trying to balance it around its particulars. Because I imagine they're two completely different games at this point.
The big thing was that there's old school RuneScape, which is... I mean, actually, they call the current one old school RuneScape. There's original RuneScape, RuneScape 1, which was just much smaller. It didn't have as much stuff to it. It's just a really old game.
Yeah.
If you find any video of it, it'll look like RuneScape with less polygons. And probably some untuned systems or whatever. And then they made RuneScape 2, which is what we know as old school RuneScape.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, but this was really early on. And then they made a combat change to make combat more interactive. So you like actually need to click and like activate abilities and like do certain slashes as opposed to just hitting the attack button and then occasionally hitting your special button,
Right.
or healing or whatever. And that's what drove a lot of the player base away because that's such a fundamental change to the game. That's just kind of about clicking on a thing and not doing anything else.
Almost like idling, but being able to like only have half your brain on it.
Yeah, so they continued off of that, with RuneScape 3, and then they brought back old school RuneScape 2, and now they're just continuing RuneScape 2 without doing the, combat update. So then it's still the correct product for all those people that were so interested in it in the first place. But they mainly just add like bosses and new items and stuff like that. You actually kill a god in one of the RuneScape games.
Kill God.
It's it was their first grand quest, which is like a quest that's supposed to be like really, really, really long. Because most of the time, if a quest caused me issues in RuneScape, it's because I didn't have like enough levels.
Right.
Like I didn't like grinding up my combat level or anything like that. But this was supposed to be like a really long thing. And then you end up killing the god Guthix. The god of balance.
Sure. Strange name for a god.
There's Guthix, Saradaman, and Zamorak. Those are the three main ones. And then there's like all the other ancient gods and stuff like that.
Never got into RuneScape. I think we were talking the other day. I never really got into MMOs, like, period. It was never really my cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean, I played RuneScape, hanging out on the phone with a friend in like middle school, but like after so long I was like, cool, I played enough RuneScape.
Yeah,
but I used to play it like every single day.
Yeah, it was the same way with League of Legends. After a while it was just like, I've played enough of this game, there's no more. No more necessary.
I still like playing Overwatch. I like trying to figure out new ways to do things with certain characters, and like I like wall climbing. One of my favorite characters in the game, well, my two favorites are Kiriko and Wrecking Ball. They both move really fast and, like, one climb up walls. Wrecking Ball is Katamari.
That's pretty sweet. Just roll people up.
You don't pick them up, you just boop them with the roll. But, like, I was like, why do I find this character so compelling? Like, why do I like to play this character that is, like, probably not a very good one? At least it wasn't for a majority of Overwatch 2. just because I get to play as a big old ball.
You love
and
Katamari.
I get to bump into people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get to boot them around. And that's honestly the most fun thing you could put in any game. I mean, just look at Katamari.
Yeah.
The most fun game.
It is the most, honestly. I'm surprised they haven't made like a new Katamari game for the Switch or even for Steam.
Oh, I mean, they made re-releases.
Oh yeah, it's a Sony title, right? So they probably kept them on PlayStation.
Oh, they brought them to Switch.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. I have to get those.
They have Katamari Damacy and We Love Katamari as the two that they have on Switch.
Hell
I was
yeah.
kind of sad when they added Katamari Damacy because I thought they were only going to do one, and I don't like that one as much as I love We Love Katamari.
Yeah, We Love Katamari is the better of the two. 'Cause, I mean, it's the sequel. They just improved upon everything from the first one.
Yeah, I love when I love those types of sequels more than any others, where they don't try and change too much. It's just kind of like them stating proudly that what they think they did worked.
Right.
And so we're just going to give you more of it. Like, We Love Katamari, that is like the premise of the entire game.
Right, just
It's
do it
just
again.
Everyone
more.
loves Katamari so much. We don't got to do this because we blew up the stars like last time. You're just going to go around and take commissions.
Yeah.
And people are going to be like, I want a Katamari made out of snowballs. And someone else is like, I want a Katamari with either one cow or one bear in it.
No,
and you get
no,
the highest
no.
score possible.
We can't possibly make Katamaris like that. But my king, you're so cool. Well, cool. Perhaps we can make one last Katamari.
Yep.
Just constantly.
The cow and bear one's really good because, like, you start out and you're almost completely surrounded by cones painted, like, with the cow pattern. You pick one up, the round's over. And you get a terrible score.
I had no idea.
It's
That's
the
pretty
first
funny.
cow or bear you pick up.
And those count as cows.
Yes, and there's also these little wooden bear statues that you could trip over and instantly end the round. And supposedly you need to, like, go around and collect, like, almost everything that isn't a cow or a bear. And then the mythical cow bear shows up. And if you get him, you get the best score.
That's awesome. Makes me want to play more Katamari.
It's good, yeah. We Love Katamari. Official sponsor of the...
Of whatever this podcast is. But speaking of, I've kind of like the idea of just calling the podcast something really generic and kind of hard to find. Like just calling it Our Podcast. Because we might be able to double brand it as OP, which is, that's a catchy name, right?
That is,
And plus it's just simple enough to where people will be like, what are you talking about? I feel like that can add to the being able to spread of it.
Prager got Silent Generation for a podcast name. It's the first one that comes up when I search Silent Generation on,
That's also true. Other people probably aren't
What's
dumb
it
enough
called?
to name their podcast just Our Podcast.
yeah.
And so it's just Our Blank Podcast or whatever, Our Whatever Podcast. But we're not gonna rein ourselves in.
They do.
No, someone already made a podcast, Our Podcast.
Yeah.
Bastards.
Last episode was May 8th.
Damn it! So it's current too.
Yep.
What the hell can we name this thing? What about Don't Go Soft on Me?
I know. I don't know if I want to put my name on a boner joke like that.
Why? It's not even like the joke is really good in and of itself. Even if we don't actually do the thing, the joke is still worth, I think, something. And I also think taking boner pills from a gas station is also worth something.
I will. If neither of us can think of something better than Don't Go Soft on Me, so be it.
Well, yeah, heard it here first. It might potentially be the name, but we'll see. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in.